Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions. And while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am happy to bring you another song from the Firefly album. And this is another one that's kind of interesting because it is another one that's kind of a question, but without the question mark. This song is called Do You Know? And we've got a couple of versions of it to cover. But, you know, it's a stylistic thing sometimes, depending on how the artist or whoever does the lettering or whoever approves it, typically the record company, wants to do it, where sometimes they'll say no punctuation. Sometimes they'll say all capital letters for everything. So it's probably more of an artistic thing than anything else. But in any case, it is called Do You Know? Which seems to really, I can't think of any form where that wouldn't be a question. I don't see a statement in that. Where you could almost say, who needs me? I think you could kind of probably work that in as a statement somehow. But do you know? That's just a question. But anyway, it's a very good song, and we're going to dig into it right here. Here it is. Do you know? Well, there was no warm up to this song, just machine gun right from the start. Very tight playing though. And again, we've talked about this where, you know, they weren't using click tracks back in this time. I'm not sure exactly when that started, but as far as I know, in 77, that still wasn't a practice. But listen to how tight the band sounds together. I mean, very much a cohesive unit. Just a blistering start right off the bat, coming in with some of those classic Heep harmonies. It's just a killer song. This could have been maybe an album opener too, just because it's another one of those things that says, hey, we're back to rock and roll, guys. Let's pay attention, get ready, because this album's going to kick your ass. I think this is a great start to a song. I'm going to say I feel like this mix is a little bit off balance. I'm hearing guitar in the left ear only, but I'm hearing the keyboard really kind of oscillating back and forth between the left and the right ear, and it's really taking up a lot of the space. Now, it does make the song sound rich and full, but it's kind of burying the guitar a little bit. I've heard this a lot in Heep's music. It would be nice to have a little bit more of a balance. If the keyboard stayed a little more to the right, gave the guitar in the left ear a little bit more room to shine, would be nice. But we're hearing some slight touches of the rhythm from the guitar here. I don't know if that last bit was a synthesizer or a guitar. It could have been a very heavily flanged guitar, but it's like really loud. It just kind of came out of nowhere. But I do feel the keyboards overall are a little bit loud too. I think they could have been brought down. We're not losing any of the dynamics in the vocals because of it though, which is good. That definitely helps, because if the vocals get muddy, as we've heard in some of the other songs, because the instrumentation around it is too much, then you're kind of losing the whole point of the story of the song. So, we've talked about the fact many times that we haven't talked, you've listened, as I have said that I'm not that much of a lyric guy, and it's true. But it is nice to be able to hear the story and hear what the song is about, hear why the music is the way it is, because we're going to rock and roll all night. And so this music is just hard hitting, or, whatever the story is. So it is nice to at least know what the song is about. And if the vocals are muddied up, especially by keyboards, which is probably the most common instrument to muddy vocals from the songs that I listen to, it's nice to hear when there's at least enough room for the vocal like we have here. I just think that it could have been a little bit more guitar and a little bit less keyboard would have been nice for me, but that's just my ear, and that's the way it works. It's very powerful. I love the vocals. That was a great bit by John right there. Love the backing vocals too, but it kind of feels like every time they introduce something new into a part, instead of blending it in, they just try to make it louder than everything else so that it can be noticed. And when you're doing that kind of stacking, sooner or later you run out of headroom and things either start to distort or things just kind of muddy up a little bit. I think that the backing vocals were great, but I think they muddied a little bit of the main vocal there. So it's kind of a rougher mix for me. We'll hear it a little bit differently when we get to the other version of the song. But for this one, it also has kind of a very 80s feel to it, doesn't it? Like an 80s rock where it's kind of dry. There's not like a lot of reverb on the song to make it sound alive. It's a little bit dry, and it just has that sound, the way the backups come in, where everything's just sort of its own part layered on each other instead of blended, which was something that I felt was very prominent in 80s pop and rock music. But in any case, we're still in 77, so this would have been ahead of its time as far as that style of mixing goes. But the music itself, let's talk about the performances. I mean, they're stellar. And they're very tight. This band is they just feel like they're invigorated with so much energy, and I love that. Absolutely love that. Well, it looks like we're going to get into a solo next. So you know how I hate interrupting those. So I'm going to say all this before we get into the solo, and then we can just enjoy the solo as it is. But it sounds like those other parts then were guitars that were there and not a synthesizer. Definitely has an interesting EQ on it, though. It's a little bit off from the rest of the song. Now, this could be a very intentional thing. It's not uncommon to do something that doesn't necessarily blend in with the same style of EQ, the same amount of a high end on it. But this definitely sounds out of place because of the EQ. Again, that may have been intentional. I don't know. I like the riff part that has come up a couple times, but it's a little loud in comparison to the song. Like I said, every time they're introducing something new, it's like, hey, we just got to make this really loud so people can hear it. But I did like when there were no lead vocals and we just had the backing vocals. That actually was a very nice blend. And then in that last section there, the keyboards dropped down a little, and then the mix kind of had that clarity again that I was looking for. So it's a little bit up and down as far as the mix goes, and that happens as you bring instruments in and out. But it's kind of like borderlining on me really enjoying the mix and me feeling just a little put off by it. You know, I've said it so many times. One thing that I really, really have always loved about Mick's playing is that he's such a patient guitarist. He knows where to be. He knows where not to be. He knows when to back off and just let the song do its thing and then just come in and do your thing. Such great work. And I really love musicians that play for the song. And Mick is such a master of that. But what's interesting, too, about this is, there's a heavy flange on this guitar sound, but it still sounds good. It still sounds a little bit different from the rest of the mix. It's louder, perhaps just a little bit too loud. But what's interesting is now the guitars that we've been hearing have been in the left ear. And for this part, when he plays on this track, he's more in the center. But what's nice is the backing vocals come in and kind of just keep everything in the center. So they're coming in on each side of the vocal. You hear the guitar, you hear the guitar in the middle, they're on the left and the right, just kind of caressing that guitar, keeping it locked into that middle spot, but keeping everything warm, very nicely blended. That's part of the mix I absolutely think they nailed, but I really love what he's playing there. And I love the sound of the guitar too. I think, again, just a slight bit too loud. Well, this song is just a freight train. From the very beginning, the first couple of notes until it fades out, it's relentless. It never lets up. There's no switching to, halftime or anything like that. And it just keeps you on your toes the whole time. And it's over before you know it. That was 3 minutes and 13 seconds of songs that really felt more like a minute and a half or 2 minutes at the most, because it just flew by so quick. And that is one of the things I love about good writing, good performances, is you really just get so lost in the music that you lose your perception of time completely. That's just good stuff right there. And it seems like so many of Uriah Heep songs do that for me, but very cool. We're going to get into the other version, which is listed as the demo mix here in just a second. But I got to say, the backing vocals really seem to be different on this album as far as the writing side of it goes, whereas we wouldn't have heard, I don't think, quite as much of this, almost, I don't want to say commercial feeling because that gives the wrong impression, but it's certainly more, I don't want to say gospel choir again either, because I don't think that's quite it, but just those repetitive, do you know, saying the song title over again or one phrase over and over again. It just feels a little bit different than what we've heard on all of the other albums up to this point. It feels like a different style for the backing vocals. We don't really have those high harmonies either, but that's okay because we didn't have them on all the songs prior to this. But I don't know, they just have a different feel to them for me. And I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what you think. But that's what I'm getting out of it, at least in the moment and in thinking about the songs that we've covered already on this album. So, but great song, man. Just such a great song. Great rock and roll tune. This is what rock and roll is all about. A song that just picks you up by your collar and says, "You're coming with me, kid, and we're going on this train," and does not let you down until the end of the song and says, "All right, get out." But when it comes to this kind of repetition at the end, it's interesting because you don't hear a lot of changes. Whereas, a lot of the other songs up to this album that we've heard as the songs are fading out, we hear a lot of changes. We hear different bass patterns. We hear people throwing in different vocals and things. And with this style that we have, it's almost more straightforward, where here's how the chorus goes, and we're going to repeat. We'll start fading out here, but there's not anything that makes me go, wait, don't fade. I want to know what happens, because we're not getting anything different. It's just more straightforward, it's fine. It's just a different style of music. So when this song fades out, I'm like, okay, I feel content that I heard it, as opposed to, but I want to know where that went. It was going somewhere. I don't get that same feeling. But again, that's okay. It's still a great song. I really like it. I think an ending to it kind of would have been weird. I kind of feel like this is one of those songs where it's a party and you just don't want the party to end necessarily. You just want to know that it kept going all night, well after you passed out or went home. The sun's coming up and there's still 3 or 4 people that are partying while everyone else is passed out on the lawn. That's just the impression that this song gives me. But it's a great song. I like it. It's another great track on the Firefly album. Once again, now we are like 6 songs in, 5 songs in, and I've just dug every one of them. They've been fantastic. So let's take a listen to a couple of bits of that demo version, and we'll see how it sounds in comparison to the album version. Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, it's a very dry version. There's really no reverb on the drums or anything. It sounds very much like it was recorded in a heavily padded room. The audio content of it does not have a lot of life as far as that goes. It doesn't sound like it was spontaneous or it was at a live venue or anything. It's very dry, but the performance is great. It's probably the same performance, but just has that. That demo mix to it, or maybe it was a demo version. I'm not sure because it doesn't say. Okay, so it turns out that this actually is an early demo version, and it said one of the earliest surviving recordings from the Lawton era for the Firefly album. So that's pretty interesting, and it definitely sounds good, though. I mean, it sounds like they had a really good grip on where the song was going to go. I like this mix much better now, except for the fact that it's dry. It doesn't have all the polish to it that we hear in the final version. I think the blend is actually much better. When that guitar part comes in, it fits in well. The keyboards are still slightly loud, but it actually works with the way everything else is dialed in. The backing vocals sound great. I love this mix. It just, like I said, it just doesn't have that, final polish that the album version does. Yeah, this is the stuff. This is how the song, I think, would have been much better suited to listening if it had been mixed this way. Again, the other version is not bad. It sounds pretty good. It's just a little bit off balance for me. And I'm going to play you one final section because I had to skip ahead and hear what the what the solo sounded like. And here is that section. Well, that's much better. I think the backing vocals were a little loud over the guitar there, but apart from that, that was a much better balance than in the other song. I mean, you could hear everything very clearly. You could really hear the bass in this version too, which I feel got diminished in the studio version. But in any case, yeah, it's a much better mix. But it's still a great song either way. Right from this being an early demo version, they knew where this song was going. It's got the same drive to it, the same passion in it. Really, really good track. This would be like a great one to start your day with. If you have a morning playlist or something like that to kind of get your ass out of bed, this would be a great song to put it on, or even start your playlist with, or even just listen to this song. If you're not out of bed halfway through this song, then I don't know what to tell you, because this isn't a song that you just lay there and listen to. Like, you got to get up and do stuff. So another great song from Uriah Heep. I really like it. I'm really loving this album. I only knew a couple of songs off of it, so I have to say this has been a very pleasant surprise. I didn't realize, even in the songs that I knew, I guess I never put much thought into it, because, when you hear a song and you kind of go, I like this or I don't like this. But now that I'm analyzing these a little bit more deeply, I really appreciate what the sound of the band is at this time. I mean, you've got a couple of new members. That's usually a pretty big shakeup. But sometimes that fresh energy, that excitement, that, hey, we've got something different, let's give it a go, can really bring out some great results. And, there's so many bands that when they've changed members, it gets really questionable. But this, I feel, is just something that these guys brought a revitalization to the band, some new excitement, and they're just like back on the top of their game again. This is some fantastic music, and great stuff. So I'm enjoying the Firefly album. I hope you guys are too. We'll see you tomorrow for the Friday episode and a special guest. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!